In MMA, there have been times when they didn't choose the right fights. This means some fights were not fair or exciting. They could make old fighters fight young ones, and it didn't seem like a good idea. People worry about the safety of the fighters. Although MMA has good fights too, these examples show that sometimes they make bad choices in picking the fights. Cain Velasquez versus Francis Ngannou. Cain used to be a champion, but had been hurt a lot, and he hadn't fought for a while. On the other hand, Francis was known for being really good at hitting hard and was getting better at fighting. The problem was that many people thought this fight was not fair. They believed it was like sending a sick soldier to fight a super strong enemy. And guess what happened? Francis quickly punched and beat Cain in less than a minute. It was so quick that people wondered why they even had the fight in the first place. That's why they say it was a big mistake in picking this fight. BJ Penn versus Yair Rodriguez. BJ Penn used to be a really famous and great fighter, like a sports legend, but as time went on, he didn't do as well in his fights, and he got older. On the other side, there was Yair Rodriguez, a younger fighter who was known for being creative and exciting in the way he fights. Now, they were set up to have a match. But here's the problem. Many people didn't think it was a fair fight. Why? Because BJ Penn was past his best days, and he wasn't winning much anymore. Yair Rodriguez, on the other hand, was on the rise and had lots of energy. So when they actually fought, it was pretty one-sided. Yair Rodriguez easily won the fight, and it didn't make him look better as a fighter because he was clearly up against someone who wasn't at his best anymore. People watching the fight were disappointed because they expected a more equal and exciting contest, but it turned out to be kind of unfair. Sean O'Malley versus Chris Mutino. Imagine there is a big sporting event, such as a race, and one of the runners gets injured just before the race starts, so they quickly find someone in the crowd who is not a professional runner and ask them to join them in the race. That person is Chris Mutino. On the other hand, we have a really fast and experienced runner in Sean O'Malley. He was supposed to be competing with someone else, but now he's competing with Chris. The problem is that Chris Mutino isn't as experienced or as good as Sean O'Malley. When the race begins, Sean O'Malley runs very fast and easily beats Chris. This was not a fair competition, as Chris was not on the same level as Sean. This upset many people. It was clear that Chris was going to lose big because he felt it wasn't safe for him to be in such a one-sided race. It's like racing someone who isn't ready to compete against top athletes. Therefore, this battle raised concerns about whether pitting them against each other was a good decision. Johnny Hendricks versus Paulo Costa. In this fight, Johnny Hendricks, who had previously been a champion in the welterweight division, faced Paulo Costa, a very powerful fighter, in the middleweight division. However, by the time of this fight, Hendricks was not performing at his best and was not as strong as he used to be. Many people believed that the fight was set up to make Paulo Costa look good by defeating Hendricks, who was considered a fading star. Costa's aggressive and strong fighting style proved too much for Hendricks to handle. It became clear during the fight that Hendricks was no longer on the same level as the top fighters in the sport. The fight ended with Paulo Costa winning convincingly, which emphasized that Hendricks was no longer competitive at the highest level of MMA. This mismatch between an experienced but declining fighter and a rising star with great power raised questions about the fairness of the matchup and whether it was the right decision to pit them against each other. Alexander Volkanovski versus Chan Sung Jung. Alexander Volkanovski and Chan Sung Jung facing each other in a fight. Volkanovski was the champion and known for being good at many different aspects of fighting, while the Korean Zombie was famous among fans but had a style that seemed to make it easier for Volkanovski to win. So, when they actually fought, it turned out the way many people expected. Volkanovski dominated the fight and won quite easily. This made a lot of fans and experts wonder why they put these two fighters together because it seemed like a mismatch. In other words, it looked like the fight wasn't very fair and it didn't give the champion a real challenge. The main point here is that the matchmaking or the decision to put these two fighters against each other didn't make a lot of sense to many people. They thought it should have been a more even and competitive match to truly test the champion's skills. MMA sometimes makes bad choices when deciding who should fight. These bad choices can lead to fights that are not exciting and even risky for the fighters. For example, they might make old famous fighters fight young and strong ones, and this doesn't seem fair. These mistakes make people wonder if they are making smart decisions. While there are still good fights in MMA, these examples show us that sometimes they don't choose the fights well. That's it for today. Bye.